Dawn breaks over Georgia pines. A man sleeps believing he's still free. Outside, horses move silently through morning mist. Everything he built will vanish within minutes. Empires die not with thunder, but whispers. This is May 10th, 1865. You are president of a nation that no longer exists. Your capital burned. Your armies surrendered. Yet you run, clutching delusions that somewhere, somehow, you can resurrect what's already dead. This is Jefferson Davis's last morning beyond prison walls. 5 weeks earlier, Richmond ignited. Davis stood at the train station watching flames devour the Confederate capital. Advisors begged him to surrender. He refused. "We continue westward," he declared, boarding the final train heading south into gathering darkness and inevitable defeat. The Confederate treasury filled just 3 wagons. Gold coins, silver bars, the financial skeleton of a dying government. Captain Micajah Clark received it on May 6th. Money without a country, currency for ghosts, power reduced to metal rattling and wooden boxes bound nowhere. Verena Davis traveled separately with 4 children. She hadn't seen her husband since fleeing Richmond's flames. On May 7th, near Abbeville, their wagons met on a dusty Georgia road. He held 8-year-old Jefferson Jr., who didn't understand why they were running. Father and son went hunting. They walked through spring woods pretending normalcy still existed. Davis taught the boy to shoot rabbits between budding dogwoods. Behind them, Union cavalry bribed informants, closed escape routes. The net tightened. They noticed nothing beyond birdsong. President Andrew Johnson posted a bounty, $100,000. In 1865, that sum transformed poor soldiers into landed gentry overnight. Federal troops flooded Georgia. Greed sharpened their vision. Every traveler became suspect. Every campfire represented potential fortune waiting to be claimed. Colonel Benjamin Pritchard commanded the 4th Michigan Cavalry. For weeks, he'd chased rumors across Georgia. On May 9th, freed slaves told him about a wagon train near Irwinville. Rich people moving fast. Scared, Pritchard rode through darkness toward his destiny and glory. The 1st Wisconsin Cavalry also received the tip. 2 Union detachments converged on Irwinville from different directions, neither aware of the other's approach. In pre-dawn darkness, this confusion would spark friendly fire. But first, they had to find their prey sleeping beside a creek. I can see the camp settling near the stream that evening. Exhausted travelers prepare simple meals over smoky fires. Sentries are posted, but these are clerks playing soldier. They've never fought real battles. Their vigilance is theater. Their weapons gather rust in damp air. Inside the largest tent, Verena lay awake. She'd sensed danger for days the way locals stared, whispered, pointed at their wagon train. Her husband finally slept, face gaunt from stress and poor rations. She listened to crickets and children's breathing, knowing peace couldn't last. Consider that moment before disaster strikes. Those final seconds of ordinary life, precious because they're ending. Davis dreamed, perhaps, of better days, his plantation, Senate career, victory parades that never happened. Outside, Michigan cavalrymen dismounted silently, sabers drawn, carbines loaded, orders whispered. 4 o'clock. A nervous Confederate sentry fired at shadows. Union troops responded with disciplined volleys. Wisconsin and Michigan cavalries, mistaking each other for Davis's escort, exchanged fire in darkness. 2 Federal soldiers died. Union men killed by Union bullets. War's final absurd irony. Davis jolted awake to gunfire. Those deserters finally attacked, he told Verena, thinking Confederate stragglers were robbing them. He stepped toward the tent opening to restore order, still believing his authority meant something. Then he saw blue uniforms. Reality crashed down violently. "Federal cavalry are upon us," he whispered. She thrust a raglan overcoat toward him. "Run to the woods, save yourself." He grabbed the garment without looking. It was hers, a woman's waterproof cloak. This mistake would birth a legend more powerful than any truth. I run toward the creek. The raglan flaps around my shoulders. A Michigan trooper spots me, raises his carbine, shouts, "Halt!" I stop running. My legs simply won't carry me further. 57 years old. Exhausted. Defeated. Captured. The Confederate president becomes a prisoner. The soldier described his prisoner, a tall, gaunt man wearing a woman's shawl, shaking with rage and humiliation. Davis demanded dignity befitting his office. The cavalryman laughed harshly. "You ain't got no office anymore, mister." That ended when Richmond burned to ashes. Northern newspapers seized the raglan coat with savage glee. Artists drew cartoons showing Davis in hoop skirts, bonnets, crinolines. Songs mocked him. Jeff in petticoats became a music hall favorite. Truth, a simple overcoat, transformed into propaganda. History written in ridicule and lies. Verena watched soldiers surround her husband. She tried approaching, but bayonets barred her way. Her children cried, confused by men with guns invading their camp. Confederate cabinet members surrendered without resistance. Not one shot fired defending Davis. The government in exile dissolved at dawn. Colonel Pritchard faced a dilemma: transport his famous prisoner quickly, or wait for superior officers to claim credit and reward money. The bounty tempted him. Glory beckoned. He chose speed, ordering Davis shackled and mounted. They would ride north immediately, before rivals arrived. The journey to Fort Monroe took agonizing days. Davis rode in chains, surrounded by cavalrymen treating him like captured livestock. Crowds gathered at every town, some jeering, others silent. One woman spat at him. He stared at her head, refusing to acknowledge their existence or hatred. Verena was separated from her husband, held in Savannah under guard. Their children were sent to Canada for safety from vengeful mobs. The Confederate First Family scattered across continents. She wrote letters pleading for his release, hiring lawyers, pressuring influential friends. Devotion never wavered. Fort Monroe in Virginia became Davis's prison on May 19th. They placed him in a casemate, a damp stone cell designed for ammunition storage, not human habitation. Water dripped constantly from moldy walls. A single barred window admitted weak light. His new presidential residence. On the 5th day, soldiers entered carrying iron shackles. Orders from Washington, the blacksmith explained without emotion. Davis resisted violently. 4 men wrestled him down against cold stone. They riveted leg irons onto his ankles. The former president wept with rage. Dignity shattered completely. You need to understand what those leg irons meant. Not just physical restraint, but psychological destruction. A proud man, however misguided his cause, reduced to livestock. Even northern newspapers questioned the cruelty. Public pressure forced removal after 5 days. But Davis would remember that iron forever. A guard stood inside his cell continuously, ordered to watch every movement. Davis couldn't sleep privately, couldn't relieve himself, couldn't grieve alone. The guard's eyes never left him. This surveillance was designed to break him, extract confessions of treason, make him beg for mercy. He refused to beg. Despite damp walls, despite leg irons, despite humiliation, Jefferson Davis maintained defiance. He insisted he'd committed no crime. The Confederate States were sovereign. He was a prisoner of war, not a traitor. His jailers disagreed violently. The debate would outlive them all. Meanwhile, across the South, Confederate soldiers returned to burned farms and occupied towns. They learned their president sat in chains at Fort Monroe. Some felt betrayed he'd promised victory, delivered ashes. Others pitied him. A few began transforming him into a martyr. Mythology replaced memory. Lincoln's assassination poisoned Northern attitudes toward Confederate leaders. Many blamed Davis for the conspiracy, despite zero evidence linking him to Booth's plot. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton wanted him hanged publicly. Others sought life imprisonment. His trial was endlessly delayed, justice paralyzed by politics. Inside the casemate, I lose track of time. Days blur into weeks. I develop dysentery, erysipelas, carbuncles. Prison doctors provide minimal treatment. My weight drops dangerously. Verena's letters are censored, sometimes withheld entirely. I exist in a tomb of stone, water, and isolation. Here's the strange paradox. Davis's suffering strengthened Southern identity. His imprisonment became a rallying point for former Confederates, rebuilding shattered society. They needed symbols of defiance. Davis locked away served better than Davis free. Martyrdom requires suffering. He provided it abundantly and unwillingly. History uses people ruthlessly. Davis wanted to be Washington, creating a new nation through righteous revolution. Instead, he became a symbol of defeat, transformed by imprisonment into something unintended. Proof that the South fought bravely, lost honorably, deserved respect despite slavery. 2 years passed inside that damp cell. No trial, no charges formally presented. just endless imprisonment while politicians debated what to do with him. Federal authorities worried a trial might let Southern lawyers argue secession was constitutional. Better to let him rot slowly. Finally, in May of 1867, prominent citizens posted bail. $100,000, the same amount once offered for his capture. Horace Greeley, the Republican newspaper editor who denounced Davis throughout the war, signed the bond. Politics makes strange allies indeed. He emerged from Fort Monroe gaunt, aged 20 years and 24 months of confinement. Supporters greeted him with cheers outside prison gates. He didn't smile. Prison had hollowed something essential from his core. The defiant president who'd fled Richmond was gone. This was a ghost. The federal government never brought Davis to trial. Charges were quietly dropped in 1869 without explanation. Prosecutors realized any trial risked validating Confederate constitutional arguments in open court. Easier to let him fade into obscurity. But he wouldn't fade quietly. He lived 20 more years. You should know what happened next. Davis spent his final decades at Beauvoir, a Mississippi estate overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. He wrote memoirs justifying every decision, admitting no mistakes. The Confederacy wasn't wrong, he insisted, just outnumbered. Defeat wasn't failure, just mathematics. Return to that moment, outside Irwinville. Dawn, May 10th, 1865, when the Michigan trooper grabbed Davis's arm, an entire nation effectively died. The Confederacy could theoretically exist without territory governments in exile, have endured for decades, but not without its symbolic head. Lee's surrender at Appomattox on April 9th crushed the Confederate military. But Davis's capture crushed something deeper, hope itself. As long as their president remained free, Southern diehards could imagine regrouping in Texas, seeking foreign recognition, continuing resistance. His arrest killed that dream. Some historians argue the Civil War didn't truly end until Davis's capture ended organized resistance. Scattered Confederate units still fought in the trans-Mississippi West. Guerrilla warfare threatened occupied territories. Davis's imprisonment sent an unmistakable message: it's over. Go home. Resistance is finished. But was it finished? The war ended, yes. But the conflict behind the war, racial inequality, regional resentment, competing visions of American identity, those didn't end when Davis was shackled. They merely transformed, finding new battlefields in politics, economics, law. We're still fighting variations today. Consider the irony burning at the heart of this story. Davis fought to preserve slavery, claiming states' rights. He was imprisoned without trial for 2 years. His constitutional rights utterly ignored. The Union, fighting to end tyranny, became tyrannical. War twists everyone into contradictions. That morning in Irwinville, when soldiers surrounded the camp, one detail gets forgotten: the Confederate treasury. All that gold and silver Davis had protected during his flight south. Union troops seized it, though much mysteriously vanished into soldiers' pockets. War's final theft went unprosecuted. Private Andrew B. of the 4th Michigan, the man who actually grabbed Davis, received a small portion of reward money. Colonel Pritchard, who stayed safely behind his men during the capture, claimed most of it. This pattern repeated throughout history. Those who risk everything gain little. Verena eventually joined her husband at Fort Monroe, permitted supervised visits under armed guard. She brought him books, clean clothes, news from the outside world. She held his hand through prison bars. Their marriage, strained by politics and war, found strange intimacy in shared suffering. Their children grew up scattered and displaced across continents. Jefferson Jr. died of yellow fever at age 21, never recovering from watching his father captured. The Davis children paid prices for wars they didn't start, ideologies they didn't choose. Innocence is always war's first casualty. In Irwinville today, a historic marker indicates the capture site. Tourists visit occasionally, taking selfies near the monument commemorating that May morning. The creek still flows quietly through Georgia pines. The land remembers nothing. History is stories we tell about places that have forgotten. The 4th Michigan Cavalry returned north as heroes, feted in Detroit with parades and patriotic speeches. They'd captured the rebel president, ended the war, avenged Lincoln's assassination. Within a decade, most were forgotten completely. Glory fades faster than you'd imagine. Only history books remember names. Jefferson Davis became the only American president of any government ever imprisoned by his own country. Think about that historical anomaly. We've had corrupt presidents, criminal presidents, presidents who committed treason in all but name. Yet only Davis sat in chains. War crimes require losing wars. I want you to understand what some demanded. Radical Republicans wanted him hanged publicly for treason. But wiser voices prevailed, arguing that martyring Davis would inflame Southern resistance for generations. Better to let him live, diminished and defeated. Death creates legends. Life creates cautionary tales. In prison, Davis read constantly history, philosophy, theology. He searched for explanations, precedents, justifications for his cause and suffering. He read about Napoleon on street, Helena, Charles I before execution, other fallen leaders. He found comfort in illustrious company. Defeat shared is defeat diminished. His guards later reported that Davis maintained dignity despite circumstances. He never complained about wretched food. He never begged for privileges or mercy. He treated his jailers with cold, aristocratic courtesy. They'd taken his freedom, but he wouldn't surrender his self-respect. That remained his alone. Meanwhile, across the South, 4 million former slaves celebrated their liberation from bondage. For them, Davis's imprisonment represented divine justice. The man who'd fought to keep them in chains now wore chains himself. Poetic justice, they called it. God's justice, their preachers declared from pulpits. But their celebration proved premature and tragically incomplete. Though slavery ended, freedom remained hollow. Black codes restricted movement. Violence enforced subordination. The Confederacy lost the war but won many battles afterward through terrorism. Davis's imprisonment changed little for those he'd tried to keep enslaved forever. In the North, public opinion gradually shifted like tides. Initially, people supported harsh treatment for the rebel president. But as months passed without trial or charges, sympathy grew. Even former enemies questioned the justice of indefinite imprisonment. American commitment to due process eventually outweighed vengeance. Davis's doctor at Fort Monroe, John Craven, later published a sympathetic memoir describing his patient's suffering in graphic detail. The book portrayed Davis as dignified, intelligent, misguided, but honorable. Northern readers consumed it eagerly. Enemies transformed into complex humans fascinate us more than simple villains. This rehabilitation troubled many who remembered slavery's horrors. Frederick Douglass warned that sympathizing with Davis meant forgetting millions kept in bondage. His suffering erases nothing, Douglass reminded audiences. But memory is short. Nostalgia is powerful. The past softens quickly in American imagination and convenience. The lost cause mythology began forming while Davis still sat in his prison cell. Southern writers crafted narratives about noble warriors fighting for states' rights, not slavery. Gallant generals, faithful soldiers, beautiful plantations, tragic defeat. This fantasy required ignoring millions of enslaved people. Forgetting proved easy. Davis contributed to this mythology after his release from Fort Monroe. His memoir portrayed the Confederacy as constitutionally justified, slavery as benign, secession as principled. He rewrote history to salvage pride from defeat, and many believed him eagerly. People prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Always have. Return one final time to Irwinville, to that frozen moment when the Michigan trooper seized Davis's arm in pre-dawn darkness. Everything changed in that instant. Not just for Davis, not just for the Confederacy, but for America's understanding of itself. We became one nation again, indivisible, but hardly united. The physical war ended that May morning beside a Georgia creek. The cultural war continues unabated. We're still arguing about what the Confederacy represented, whether its symbols deserve honor or condemnation, how to remember without glorifying. Davis's capture settled military questions. It resolved nothing deeper. Historians call May 10, 1865, the day the Confederacy officially died. Legal scholars debate when Davis ceased being a president and became merely a prisoner. But dates don't capture human reality. A desperate man running at dawn, caught wearing his wife's coat, shackled, humiliated, broken. His arrest crushed the Confederacy's last hopes because hope requires leadership and structure. Scattered troops might fight on, but without direction, without coordination, without a government to represent, they were just armed men causing chaos. Davis's capture transformed principled rebellion into mere banditry. The distinction mattered enormously. Think about hope for a moment. Davis ran south after Richmond fell because he still hoped against all evidence. Hope isn't rational armies had surrendered. Territory was lost. The cause was obviously finished. Yet hope persisted until that Michigan cavalryman grabbed his arm. Only then did reality overwhelm delusion. Perhaps that's the real story of May 10th, 1865. The morning when hope died in a Georgia camp. When a president became a prisoner. When a nation became a fading memory. Not a glorious ending. Not dramatic finish. Just exhaustion, capture, and the quiet realization that some things, once shattered, can never be remade.